Hey guys, I'm back on Vision Serpent with some new tracks. This time with Dreams, Spectrum of Sound, which I did together with Toby, aka 6'6", and a great remix from Monocoque, which I recommend to check out. Let's maybe start off with kick and bass, the fundamental of everything. I always start with kick and bass. I mean, some people start with something else, but I like to start with kick and bass to just give me a good fundamental. I used a Psytech from Kashmir in the key of G, which I transposed one semitone downwards, so it should be in Fizz, in F sharp. It's 128 BPM. So the kick pattern is 4 on the floor, as usually for techno. The bass, it has a little bit of groove to it, so it's just always the root note, but with some variation, which gives like this like a little bit of groove. So you just play around with it. You can also just put it like steady if you want, so it feels like more. But in this case I liked it a little bit more groovy. For the bass I used Vital, which is a free plugin. I can highly recommend it. I mean, at least if you can't afford Serum or something, it's a great start, and this does the trick for me most of the time. So when you initialize, it looks like this. Then you can remove the fundamental, and then later on add it again, just with an sine oscillator, where you can dial in the bass, so you have more control over the sub. And important is here to put the phase randomization to 0, so it's not phasing around, and then you can get a more solid kick and bass foundation. So yeah, it's not phasing. I could show you later. Then in this case I added an overdrive to give it some saturation, and also the filter is closed pretty low, so then I added a little bit of envelope to just give it like this bounciness, like so every time the note is triggered it gets like a little bit of a pop, so it's not 100% steady, but is like a bit of jumping. I added a little bit of multiband compression and added another filter with more drive to get like this tone. I had a reference track, I can't remember which it was. I really wanted to get like this gritty bass. Yeah, so I used this distortion. You could also use like here distortion, but in this case I used this one with another filter, and I mapped like in LFO, in envelope mode, yeah, to trigger it. But you could also use the envelope 2 here. Just drag and drop it here, and yeah. Further, then I used like the side chaining. I used the LFO tool just to get it pump and to make space for the kick. So it gets like this pumping feeling. It's always, also this sounds like boring. It sounds like a robot. It's also important to use it to clean up the low end. So yeah, kick and bass always stay separated. Afterwards I added R-Bass, which is also a distortion plugin, like harmonic distortion, I think. And somehow you can just put here the frequency. I added it so it gave it a little bit of like more extra greenness and some brightness and more in your face. So without and with it, yeah, for me in this case it did the trick. Also I used some stereo processing. The whole signal I split it into 2 channels, where I put some overdrive on it and saturated like for the sound I wanted to, and added a widener, and then cut everything below 278 Hertz. So I just got the like the mids and a bit of stereo width. So when I just, so this is the stereo information, which I just enhance a little bit with widener. You can also use like utility or something, but like this is also a free Max for Live device, which is pretty easy to use, just a high pass and a width control. And like in mono it's like this, and so it gets like a little bit more stereo. And for the mono part I just cut a little bit more, so you can see here, so they're not overlapping too much, and together they give like this wide and in your face bass. And without would be like this, and with stereo I think it's more pleasant. And then together I cutted some of the highs, since they sounded a bit harsh, because I added so much distortion that I just removed a little bit more. And at the end I added ozone imager to check where my bass is still is functioning monos. And you can see it's pretty damn in the center, because all the stereo information is just like in this channel and upwards, and here's nothing happening. Then I also added a mid bass, which fills a bit of the mid and also gives a little bit of groove, which plays also 16th and is heavily sidechained with a little bit of filter automation. I just recorded it from my synthesizer, my Peak, where it's just, I think it's just a unison patch with a little bit of noise, and then just played around a little bit with the filter. But I think it gives a good groove in this case. A low pass, like you should always do with stuff that isn't kick and bass, just take away the low end. I always like to add some drum bass in case I feel like the sound is missing some punch or something. In this case I just added it so it was louder, but you can just throw it onto it, press compress, and then most of the time it gets pretty damn loud, and you often have to pull down a little bit of the output, or just pull down the track, but always check for you're not clipping into the next device. Yeah, and you could also give here some more drive. Yeah, then I EQ'd some frequency I don't like, so I removed like 200 Hertz. It's always good to check where 400 Hertz or something is maybe not good for the sound. You can just make a little bell and dip it. So 400 is always a frequency that doesn't sound that good. And then I processed everything together in a bus group. At the beginning put an LFO tool where to check the phase of kick and bass. Always check the phase of kick and bass. Yeah, so the kick is always constant and it's not wobbling around too much. I mean, in this case it's wiggling a little bit, but it's okay. But yeah, that's the reason why you should always put here the phase randomization, especially for the sub oscillator. Put it down, because otherwise... Also you hear now something with the bass is not sounding pretty good, like it's phasing more around and it's not sounding stable. Also with all the distortion I added, didn't sound good, so now it's always the same. And always check that you have your voices down, because otherwise it could mean that the synth is playing when your MIDI notes are not directly cut off, or you have too much of the release, that they're overlapping and you get like weird phasing. So always put it here to 1, so it always cuts itself. So always put it to mono with other synthesizers, just don't put it on polyphone. I added a little bit of glue compression, so just with a long attack and a short release, so just that the kick pushes through and the bass, yeah, like the transient is a little, that's still there, so it shaves a little bit off the bass, it pushes a bit the bass, but the transient of the kick is still hitting. But in this case it does just a little.